Welcome back, my fellow raiders, to the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. I'm your host, Andrew Zink, and I'm super excited to welcome you back for episode 22, Iki Island Side Quests. Yeah, so we're starting on the side quests of Iki Island, of which there are 7. Super excited to get into them, so we'll just dive right in. So, one thing I want to point out is I saved my favorite of these quests for last. And it's a pretty short one, but it's called A Helping Hand. But yeah, I saved that one for last, so stick around, y'all. Okay, so the first quest we're going to do is called A Mother's Law. So this is the quest you can do with Fune right after you do the epilogue last words quest. So I figured it'd just be a good idea to start with that, because right when you finish epilogue last words, and that's like the final main storyline quest, and that's when you finish the main storyline, then you go back to Fune's refuge, and this quest is just talking with Tenzo, and then Fune says, come see me for, a quest, basically. So when you go to see her, she'll give you this quest. So you arrive, and she's at her main dojo at Fune's refuge. And so you arrive, and she's arguing with a raider named Hachiro. So following your instructions to speak with her, Jin basically learns of her plan to capture a Mongol supply ship, and she says that this Mongol supply ship has enough supplies to carry the raiders through the war. So she's arguing with Hachiro about this, and then Hachiro just storms off. So then when you talk to her, you kind of dig deeper, and you discover that Fune is actually planning a rescue mission for her captured daughter. And this is disguised as a raid to conceal it from Hachiro, who's kind of her rival within the raider group. So this is really fascinating, because you don't really know, you haven't seen anything, you've just felt like Fune is in total control, and they're introducing a very new dynamic here. And you also didn't know that Fune had a daughter. So very interesting to know all this. So yeah, at this point, the quest starts. And when the quest starts, Fune says, you can go wait on my ship, or you can join in the festivities, before you do. So right away, I was like, oh, this is cool. I mean, I'd love to see what some of the festivities are. So yeah, you can leave her dojo, and then there's 3 festivities you can participate in. So the first, if you go out back behind her dojo, you can bet on a game of Go, and this is like a sort of board game that 2 people are sitting around a log playing. And yeah, you can just place a bet on the black or white chips, and you don't see the results of the game right then. You have to come back later to see what happens. So then after that, you can go sit around a bonfire and warm your hands. So that's obviously not too much of a festivity, but in which case you overhear a conversation between 2 raiders, and they're basically talking about Fune acting weird. And you hear them say, well, the last time she acted weird was when, and then one of them says oh no, we have company, don't say anything, and they're talking about you, obviously. So then that's interesting. They're alluding to something having happened in the past, and that now Fune is acting weird again. And then the final festivity you can participate in is having a drink with a raider. And you have this funny interaction where, he says it's like his special brew, and Jin is like, oh my god, this is hard to drink and not great. So that's, I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, so then after that, you go wait on Fune's ship, that's docked in the cove there. So eventually, when you get to the ship, you just lay down on a goza mat and then just go to sleep and wait. So then eventually you wake up and you hear her arguing with Hachiro again. And so she's telling him, so Hachiro is saying that she isn't telling them everything. And she's saying that, she's giving them orders and that's it. That she doesn't have to tell them anything. And so eventually Hachiro relents and decides to go along with it. So Fune then says that they are going to that they're going to head down the coast with her and join more men that she sent to scout while they prepare the ship. So as you travel, as you, or well, not while they prepare the ship, but while they just prepare for the mission, basically. So as you're traveling down the coast, you start talking with Fune, and Fune says that her daughter's name is Toki, and she shares Fune's chin, her eyes, but then doesn't actually know that much more about her, and she reveals that she doesn't know what she looks like because they aren't on speaking terms. So Jin is very sympathetic, and these are the moments in this game that I really love. This type of character development where Jin is being open and sharing. And she asks Jin if he's close to his family, and Jin says that his father saved his true self for the battlefield. And Fune kind of relates to this, just that, and says that perhaps I'm more similar to the Butcher of Iki than I'd like to admit. And she kind of sounds very regretful about how her relationship is with Toki. So all this is very interesting. So then, as you're running down the beach, you eventually come upon her scouts, and you get a cutscene. And so a scout named Yasu reports that the Mongols are loading their ship up ahead with no idea that they're coming. So Funa says that she has archers in position, ready to light the sails of the Mongol ship on fire so that they can't escape. And then you see a little scene of them creeping through this grass. So here's something I didn't realize when I started this quest. The archers are on the other side of this small channel. It's like you're on the coast, but there's a big island, so it creates a small channel there. So the archers are heard shooting from the other side and from a different piece of land than what you're on. So I'll mention why this matters later. So, all right. So then you head out and you basically run right down to the beachside camp to engage the Mongols. So you can stealth it for a bit if you want. And the boat, it's a big Mongol ship, and it's literally right there, on the coast with wooden planks, leading down to the beach, being loaded up with supplies. So you can engage the Mongols, you can stealth it, you can clear a lot of them on the shore, or you can just run right in. I love using the hallucination darts and drawing all the Mongols together and then tossing an explosive or something down. It's one of my favorite things to do. But once you clear the Mongols on the beach, you always get led to the boat, and you have to go up to the boat. And one thing I want to mention is that there are shamans on the beach and they're on the boat, so you have to be careful of that. And on the beach, there's actually bears and boars that you can release from cages to cause havoc as well. So that's also very funny. If you use the hallucination darts and set the animals free, then you could just watch, chaos unfold, which is funny. So if and when you get caught, Funa and her soldiers will run out, and then the real fight begins. So eventually, you board the ship, and then you have to clear it. I mean, there's not really too much to say about fighting on the ship. I think the ship fights are always really cool. I love that the eagle ships have the eagle head on them as opposed to the horse head that you see in the mainline game. There's a bunch of Mongols, you clear them, there's a shaman, and you can stealth a little bit on the ship too. Eventually you do get caught and you just have to fight it. There's a bunch of soldiers on the ship, you clear them, and always fun to do battles alongside your allies, which is cool here. Once you clear the deck, you open the dungeon door and a bunch of prisoners run out. But none of the prisoners are Toki. So then you walk inside this dungeon, and it's a dungeon on the main deck. It's not a below deck dungeon. So Fune, walks in to talk to Toki as you're there. And Fune refers to herself as Oka. And Toki is totally unresponsive. So Toki is sitting on the floor. And honestly, I thought she might have been dead. I really wasn't sure. And Fune then explains that her mind has been consumed by something called kusuri, which you get the sense is a drug. And so she says that she gave Toki kusuri a long time ago to ease a broken arm. And Jin then says that it's a powerful medicine that can be very addicting. And Fune then says that she never knew that Toki kept using it until she got a group of her men killed on a raid some years ago. And she said that by her own law, she should have been executed, but she sent her away because it was her daughter, and she couldn't do it. And she said that the whole crew was really angry, and some people left, but some people stayed and still hate her. And apparently, the guy Hachiro is one of those people. So, Funes like talks about following her laws to the letter, but that she didn't do that, and Toki is still gone. So she said that, and then this is the last part of this. She says that she found Toki in the back of a tea house, lost in a dream, sometime that she had a chance to save her, and that she'd found, and this was some time ago, and so Fune reveals that Toki had soiled herself and that she'd been like that for days, and that it you could tell from the stink. And Fune says she was so angry that she just left her there. And you can this is a really heavy, sad moment. And Fune says that she should have brought her home. And Jin then says, well, now you can, so let's get her and go and bring her to safety. And then it cuts to black. So yeah, I mean, wow, what a crazy. I mean, again, they do such a good job with this, where it's even just thinking you're going to rescue her daughter, to show up and have all of this be revealed it's really emotionally heavy and potent, and just creates so much sympathy and characterization around the people in the game. And I just really, although it's heavy material, it makes me care about the characters and the storylines, so much more. And again, they didn't even have to do this with Funa, giving her this characterization, but I love that they did. And I also just wanted to take a moment to talk about this addictive substance, kusuri, just as context for everyone. So kusuri it's a word in Japanese that basically translates to just medicine. Kusuri isn't actually a named drug that's oh, I'm doing kusuri. It's not really like that. It's kind of just a broad term for strong medicine. So in the game, it's fictional, the way that they're using it as the name of an actual drug. And yeah, I actually did some research on this because I was really curious. Just wanted to provide the context here. So that's the deal with that. In the game, you don't really get a sense of what it actually is. You kind of can assume it's something like opium. But they don't really need to give you that specific. It's just something of that nature. And, Toki seems just kind of totally out of it. So after you finish up this scene in the dungeon, you then get a cutscene outside on the deck of the ship. So you haven't even really left yet. So Hachiro rolls up with the crew of raiders, and he's talking about this whole thing. And right away I was like, oh no. I was like, dude, you better get the hell out of here, because we don't got time for this, and we're not dealing with this. So he's saying oh, look who it is, Fune didn't tell us the plan, and here's her daughter. And so then he reveals that his brothers were killed on that raid that Toki led. And Hachiro says that Toki hasn't paid enough for what happened on that raid. And Fune tries to say, she's already paid for that, but Toki disputes that. And then he says to Fune that he'll let her say goodbye before he opens Toki's throat. And I was like, wow, this guy is... wow, what a character we have here. So I was like, no way, dude. We just came all this way to rescue her. No way this is happening. So Jin says that this girl is lost and only a monster would kill her now. And, Hachiro tells Jin that it's not his business and to stand back. And Fune tells, she speaks to the whole crew that are present. And she says, for anyone who's still loyal to me, stand back. And then you see, like, in the cutscene, some of them stand back, and some of them are clearly going to be on Hachiro's side. So then, yeah, you start a fight. It's Jin and Fune versus Hachiro and his crew. I'd say there's like 6 or 7 of them. And honestly, fighting raiders and like bandits in the game, it's not super hard because they're not really armored. They're pretty low health, and like, you know, you can headshot them with your bow and arrow, and it's like one hit kill. So it's not super hard. It's not a super hard scene. Hachiro goes down pretty quick. This is not a duel. There's no real health bar or anything. Again, super funny if you hit Hachiro with like a sticky bomb or something and just watch the explosive damage on all of them. And so, yeah, then after you clear them, you get this final cutscene where you're back down on the beach and you've left the ship, and Jin and Fune talk about the importance of family, and they have this just very heartfelt conversation. And Fune gives Jin, like, you know, just a very heartfelt thank you. You kind of see that in this game where someone, like, really, like, they look each other in the eyes and they're like, thank you, you know? So, and, yeah, that's the end of the quest. And that's the end of... That's kind of like the last thing you ever do with Fune on the Iki Island DLC. So, all in all, yeah, I thought this was a fantastic quest. I thought they did a really great job with this quest, and I loved getting that background on Fune. And again, what I love about this game and these side quests is that I feel like they just keep introducing just like new parts of the world. And in this case, it was like substance use, right? And like substance abuse and how people would be affected by that and how it affects a family. And yeah, just really, I really appreciated that this quest was there. So really enjoyed it. All right, y'all. So now we're moving on to the next side quest, which is called The Ghost of Iki Island. I can't wait to talk about this quest with you guys. I gotta say, I thought this quest had like the biggest twist of maybe the whole DLC. I don't know. I just did not see this coming by the time this happened. All right, so you arrive at a survivor camp, and you're hearing a story about the ghost of Iki. So the civilians, and you go talk to them. And they're talking about these Ghost of Iki stories. And you get a dialogue choice where you can say that it's you or talk about the rumors. And either option kind of leads to the same thing, which is them saying that the Ghost of Iki Island is asking for donations. And they leave the donations at his camp, and that he, the Ghost of Iki Island, likes his sake filtered and his millet washed. And so Jin is very suspicious of this whole thing. And even if you do the dialogue choice of saying that you've lived, that you are the ghost, to like, they'll just be like, no, that's not true. So right away I was laughing and I was like, oh my God, like whoever's doing this is just doing this to get like free stuff from people, basically. All right, so you start the quest. So you have to travel to the ghost's offering site near Kitafura village. So you arrive and investigate, you know, an empty sake bottle. You find a warm campfire and a torch. And so you realize that someone's definitely been living there. So then as you look, you're not like in Kitafura village, you're on the outskirts of it. So then you see bandits camped out in the main part of Kitafura village. And so then you start watching them. And then you see the ghost of Iki sneaking up. And the ghost of Iki honestly looks like a bandit. So Jin is just commenting that it's funny. This is like the only time you get something like this in this game, in this DLC, but where you're just like watching from like, it's like a cutscene, but it's not. You're just like watching it happen. So as Jin is watching, he's commenting. So you see this guy, the ghost of Iki, sneak up and steal sake and like take a drink right there from these bandits. So then he sneaks forward more and steals more stuff, and Jin is saying like, oh, so he's more like a thief than a samurai. And then he blows up some explosive barrels and runs away while bandits are distracted. And Jin has like a comical line while he's doing this. So right away, I thought this was hilarious. I was just like, oh my God, this is just like so dumbly funny. So eventually so then you get a quest to follow the ghost of Iki as he's running away from Kitafura village. So you kind of just ride around the bandit camp on the outskirts of the village, and eventually you catch up to the ghost in this spot, and you find tracks. So you then have to follow the tracks into the woods for a while, and you arrive in the woods to find a raider talking with the ghost of Iki at this camp in the woods. And so the raider is saying to the ghost that he owes them money. And Jin shows up and says, basically, like, says scram to the raider and says, I have business with this guy, you gotta leave. And the raider takes one look at Jin and is like, okay. So then, yeah, you can start talking to the ghost of Iki. And this guy, he has like black hair, he looks young, he's like skinny, he's just wearing like normal clothes. He doesn't look at all like a warrior. So when you start talking to him, you ask him what's going on. And so then this guy introduces himself as Fugu. And so Fugu introduced himself, and he says that he works for the ghost. And right away I was like, are you kidding me? Like, oh my god, now it's just more runaround. So then he says that they were fighting to save Iki Island when the Dead Fox bandits showed up and took the ghost prisoner to their camp west of here. So Jin then tells Fugu to stay put. And Jin says, all right, I'm going to go find the ghost. So now you head out to this bandit camp that honestly, it's just like a short run through the woods. It's not super far. And so then you arrive, and this bandit camp is set up at one house, and there's some tents outside. So you can clear most of the bandits if you do a standoff, if you're wearing the Sakai armor. That makes it go pretty fast. There's only like 6 or 7 bandits in total. And then, yeah, you just clear them. Not a super hard fight. So then you head inside to find the ghost of Iki. And so you're going in, and so you get this super funny cutscene where Jin is walking into the room in the back of this house, and he says, so, let's see who's been impersonating me, ghost. And then he goes, you? And the camera pans over to show the whole room, and then someone looks up in like a black straw hat, and they're tied up and everything, and it's Kenji! It's your boy Kenji from mainland Tsushima! Oh, I freaked out when this happened. I was like, I was like, Kenji, what are you doing here, my guy? Oh my god. And I just thought it was so funny that Kenji, and I was like, it's brilliantly Kenji, right? Where it's like, he hears these ghost stories, and he's like, oh, I can find a way to, like, scam people off this at a new place. So Jin is so mad. Right away, Jin's so mad. And Kenji's being Kenji, and he says, what? It was a respectful tribute. I was just laughing so hard doing this. So Kenji then starts to tell the story. And he says the Mongols were everywhere on Tsushima, and then he says they were everywhere on Iki, so he tried to sneak aboard a smuggler's ship to get back to Tsushima, which didn't work out. So then he says after that, some locals that Kenji had scammed got wind of it and took him prisoner from the smugglers who owned the boat that he tried to sneak on board. So then he says that he took up the ghost story to like raise money and leave for the mainland Japan. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to leave for mainland Japan. And so, yeah, he was like, well, if I can inspire people, and get some money along the way, then everybody wins. And he gives you this Kenji smile. So that's super funny. So, yeah, eventually Jin says he might leave him, but then you end up freeing him. So then you escort Kenji back to his campsite nearby. So it's literally like you just run down this hill behind this bandit camp. It's not super far. So then Jin says that you get back to his camp. Jin says that he's leaving. But Kenji begs for his help. Very Kenji. And Kenji says, like, he talks about Fugu, and he says that, Kenji asked Jin to help find Fugu because Fugu is like a kid. Like, it's very obvious. And he's a fisherman. So Jin agrees to help find him because Jin's a good guy, and you don't want to leave this kid fisherman just, like, stranded running around on this island. So then Kenji tells you that there's a meetup spot nearby, you start heading out for it. So on the way, you start talking. And asks Jin what brought him to Iki. So, I was just happy to see someone I knew. Like, I was just excited. I was like, whoa, someone I know on Iki. That's cool. So then Jin says that he came with his father once and heard that there was trouble on Iki Island and he wanted to help. And so then I find Kenji to be so funny. Kenji just, like, blows his raspberry. He just goes like, pfft. And he says, like, I wish I'd heard those rumors because everything I heard is that Iki was safe, and that there was not a Mongol in sight anywhere. I thought this was so funny. I was like, he came to Iki Island to run away. Iki Island was like more overrun than Tsushima was, and then tries to like find a boat back to Tsushima, or mainland Japan, but eventually it ends up being mainland Japan. And then like tries scamming people, gets caught, ends up in the clutches of bandits that he scammed. Just such a funny storyline, such a funny guy. And then Kenji says that the Eagle tribe sank the boat that he used to get to Iki Island from Tsushima, and that Fugu pulled him from the sea. And then he says, I tried to ditch Fugu, but he wouldn't listen. All of this is just so funny. It's so Kenji. So then you basically arrive at Fugu's camp at this meetup spot. And Fugu shows up, and when he sees Kenji, he says, "The ghost lives to fight again." And then Kenji goes, "Let's stop with that, Fugu. My name is Kenji, and you can call me that." So that's very funny. And then he introduces Jin as the real ghost. And Fugu says that someone called the Viper has a message for the ghost. And so you're then introduced to this new character in the quest, and Jin says that he knows the Viper of Hakata Bay. And Kenji says that this is a smuggler that he told Jin about and he owes a fortune to now. So Jin says that he'll go along because the samurai have been hunting the Viper of Hakata Bay for 20 years while he's evaded capture. So you start riding out for a location called the Viper's Den. And this is like on the western coast of Iki. So again, I mean, this quest has just taken so many turns. Like now you're just headed out to this random, village, this smuggler hideout, to see what's going on there. So then, when you start riding out along the way, Kenji says that he had to trade his horse, Miko, which you actually met Miko, earlier in the game. So I thought that was just cool to have that callback. So Kenji says that he had to trade his horse Miko to the Viper as collateral, while Kenji goes out and makes money to pay for himself, for trying to sneak aboard the ship. And he says that the Viper agreed to save him a seat to the mainland if Kenji also paid 10 times the asking price for Miko. So that's great. So Jin explains that Lord Shimura had been hunting the Viper for years. So yeah, you're riding. It is kind of a far ride, actually. But eventually, you arrive at the Viper's Den. Here's the funny thing. I'd actually accidentally discovered the Viper's Den on my own, just like riding around the coast. And then I got this quest for the Ghost of Iki Island from a random civilian at the Viper's Den. So I was able to just fast travel back there. But that was funny. So you walk into the Viper's Den, right? And it's like right on the beach. This is like a beach fishing village sort of place. Kenji walks in and he's like shouting and he's like, "The Ghost of Iki's here, come out, Viper." And Jin is like, "Dude, stop, let me do the talking." So the Viper comes out and he's a raider basically. And Jin is introduced and the Viper recounts how he had a run-in with Kasumasa once. And never got the feeling back in his little finger. So then you get a dialogue choice, actually. And again, right away, I was like, oh, more background maybe on Jin or something. So the dialogue choice is, "I am not my father," which, for the first time in the game, and in the whole game of Ghost of Tsushima, there's a parenthesis where it says diffuse, or you can choose watch your tone, which is confront. So I thought this was so cool. This was like a real, actual RPG situation and how this, situation can go. So I did diffuse. I wanted to see where the conversation went. So then Jin says, he's not his father, and he apologizes for Kenji, being very diplomatic. Then you get a second dialogue option, which is, "We can work this out," diffuse, or "This isn't a negotiation," confront. So again, I did diffuse. And Jin says that Kenji will need a long time to pay it back, but if they find a way that they can settle up now, that's a smarter idea, because Kenji could also die at some point along the way and then never pay it back. I thought this was so funny. I just think everything about this whole quest is just utterly hilarious. So the Viper agrees to work out a deal. He says that the Eagle tribe has stolen his navigation maps, so they can't even set sail if they wanted to, and that they have every smuggling route between China and Hakata Bay. And so the Viper says that if he needs them to reach the mainland, Like he needs them to reach the mainland for the trip, and also that if the Mongols break his code, they'll learn every weakness in the Shogun's fleet. So that is very interesting. They cut a deal. Jin says he will recover the navigation charts if Kenji can get passage to the mainland. And then they agree. So right away I was like, another part of this quest that you have to do. So then you have to start riding out for the Mongol camp back at Kitafura village. You have to go all the way back there. So then along the way, yeah, you talk with Kenji. And I'm pretty sure you can't fast travel this. I tried to and you couldn't, so I'm pretty sure you have to ride back. So you arrive at like the outskirts of the camp, and Kenji agrees to stay back. So then you sneak up to this Mongol camp, and you can stealth it or fight them. And this is actually the same part of the camp where you have during the Battle of Kitafura Village, where the scouts get captured and you have to free them before you start the final part of the Kitafura Village Massacre quest battle. So, yeah, after you clear the Mongols via stealth or fighting them, it's not a super hard fight. There's not a ton of them. You retrieve the navigation charts, and then you ride back to the Viper's Den with Kenji. And you know you kind of cut back there, and then you give the Viper the maps, and he says good job, and he basically says that they're going to set sail soon, but there's only one seat available. So you assume Kenji's going, and then the Viper says see you later, and Kenji has a funny line about sneaking gin in a sake barrel if he wants to leave on board the boat, and then he says, with some cooking oil and those narrow hips. And again, I thought this was so funny. And Jin says, no, my business isn't concluded. I have to stay here. And Kenji is about to say goodbye. And then you get another cutscene. And the cutscene is Kenji waving Fugu over, and he says, Fugu, come here. And then Fugu says, what, have you left something? And Kenji says, yeah, my common sense. And then he gives up his seat on the boat to Fugu to go to mainland Japan. And he says that Fugu earned it. And Kenji says that, Fugu needs, Fugu basically, can't believe it, and he runs and gets on the boat. And then Jin, is very proud of Kenji for doing this. And he says that, Kenji says that Fugu needs the help more, and that, he feels like he can survive and find a way to be okay. And yeah, it's comical, but then the quest actually ends with this nice soft piano music as they're playing, and that's the end of the quest. And then yeah, it just shows Kenji and Jin together on the beach, and that's the end of the quest. So yeah, I thought this quest was hilarious. I loved it. A lot of running around, but who wouldn't love a surprise Kenji quest, on Iki Island? And here's the thing for me. This was actually I think this was the final quest that I did in this whole DLC, and therefore the whole game. And so I actually was ready to go home at this point, and I kind of wish that there was an actual boat ride back to Tsushima that you took with Kenji, because it just would have rounded out the story really nicely. But yeah, so I like this quest. Thought it was really funny. Hope you guys did too. All right, now we're going to move on to the next quest, which is called Troubled Waters. So this is actually a set of two quests that go together. All right, so Troubled Waters, you arrive to the central western coast, and you find a shipwreckage, and then you talk with a dying raider. And so he says that they were attacked by a rival band of trader raiders called Yamaneko. And he says that Yamaneko and his crew made a deal with the Mongols, who gave them a hwacha. And so they're sailing around with a hwacha on a ship. So that's actually really crazy. And there's burnt shipwreckage around there. And so the raider tells you to find Sugi at a village to the south, and that she has a red casa hat. And he says to warn her because they're coming for her and the village. So then the quest starts. So then right then, a hwacha starts firing at the beach, and it's from the boat. It's from Yamaneko's boat off the coast. And so then this raider dies, he passes away, and then there's Yamaneko's crew launch an attack on the beach. So they start running, and you have to like defeat them along the coast of the beach while the Hwacha firing is happening. So I thought this was really cool. I think this was the only time in the Iki Island DLC where you're like taking fire from a Hwacha. So I thought this was actually a little bit hard because you're just dodging Hwacha fire while you're fighting people on the beach. So yeah, you have to defeat all the raiders attacking, and they're mostly archers. Not a hard fight. So then after you beat them, you have to start heading out for the village to the south, and it's not far. So you arrive, and this village is called Thieves' Rest Village, and this place is leveled. It is totally destroyed, like burnt to the ground. There's only like 6 or 7 civilians in total living here. Not a great place, not a good scene. So you have to ask around for Sugi and find out what happened. So one person tells you that hundreds of arrows, like flaming arrows, were raining down and that they didn't even know why they were targeted, but he says he doesn't know Sugi. And then another person says that a man and a woman live next door. So when you go to that house, you then investigate around, and again, it's totally burnt. Like they're just living inside a burnt husk, basically. And so you investigate and find a bath spot, a mat, just like signs of people living there. And then right then, Sugi appears with her partner, Sanpei, and she says, "Oh, why are you looking for me?" And so you basically tell her what happened, and Sugi says that it's already too late if they know that she's there. And then you hear screaming outside. And right away, I feel like you could tell that Sugi's kind of a badass. Like you could tell that this is not someone you want to mess with. So you go outside, and then you find both Mongols and Yamaneko's raiders have shown up, and they have they've wounded a civilian. And so then this first mate of Yamaneko, his second in command, in this cutscene, they basically say, like, how do you like our new allies? We're going to be the most powerful crew on the island. Like, he's talking to Sugi. So right then, you just start a fight and win. So this is a little bit of a tougher fight because there's a shaman and there's Mongols. So you want to hit that Mongol. You want to hit the shaman with a sticky bomb, and try to take out the Mongols. All in all, not a super hard fight, and once you defeat them, you then talk with Sugi, and you basically just follow her. You're, like, walking through the village. And she says that Yamaneko's crew are well armed and only dock at a specific place and specific time. So it's going to be hard to get them. And so then you arrive at the coast and you get like a real cutscene. And she reveals that she was his first mate to Yamaneko in his crew and kept him from his worst impulses. But eventually she quit the crew when she met Sanpei, because she didn't want to live that life anymore of being like a pirate and a raider, and she wanted to live a quiet life. So she insists, on the two of them working together. Jin wants to do it alone, and she says, no, we have to work together. And she says to meet her at an abandoned fishing village to the west after tracking down an old contact. And that's the end of this quest. So yeah, I thought this was cool. This was exciting. It's like a 2-part quest. I was excited for what comes next. So we'll just dive right into it. The next quest is called Bloodletting. So this takes place in Gonora Prefecture. These all take place in Gonora Prefecture, but this is on the other side of Gonora Prefecture on the western coast. So you arrive to this fishing village, and you find a captive, and it's just a random civilian woman who's a captive on a dock, and you have to clear some Mongols. So when you clear the Mongols and you free her, she then runs away, but then Sugi appears behind you. And she says that was quite a sight to see. And she says, you're not a samurai or a ronin. What are you exactly? And I loved this because I was like, I'm a ghost. Let's go. But so she asks, and Jin says, we're similar. We're both people who've been hunted. And so she proceeds to say that Yamaneko's crew are trading captives for Mongol Hwachas at the nearby cove. And right away, they were like, oh, so these are this is like slave trading, basically. This is really messed up. No way we're standing for this. And so Sugi says that they'll split up. She says that Yamaneko is her responsibility because she reveals that Yamaneko is her brother. And Jin really sympathizes with her about how hard it is to, fight with family. And obviously, in this case, potentially kill your family. That'd be horrific. So Jin says that he will head up the coast where their camps are, and she promises Hwacha support from the ship. So here's the plan. She's going to basically take a rowboat and like sneak out on board Yamaneko's ship off the coast, and then hijack the Hwacha, and then she'll like rain down support for Jin along the coast. So Jin says he'll put flour in their campfire to like make the like white smoke come from the campfires, which I didn't know that could happen, and it'll like be a guide to her of where to shoot the Hwacha. So then the quest starts. So Jin has to clear a lookout post nearby first, and then she will meet him. So there's 3 lookouts on top of this cliff nearby. You just clear them and then go on top of the cliff. And there's a campfire, and then you just like have to wait. If you hit the right trigger, you wait at the campfire until nighttime. So then nighttime arrives, and you look north to scout, and you see this whole coastline of like Mongols and raiders around campfires. And it's actually kind of a cool sight. You see out all along this coast. And some Mongols are like up high, like, some campfires are up high in the cliffs, and others are along the beach. So it's just a cool spot. So yeah, you then spot campfires and crews, and you have to clear one archer. There's like the first campfire is like right in front of you. It's kind of like a tutorial, basically. So you clear one archer, and then you can put the flour in the campfire, and then the Hwacha attack will come in from Yamaneko's boat. And not only does it do damage, but they basically convince the Mongols that the raiders, that Yamaneko's crew, have turned on them, and that's why they're being attacked from the boat. So then they'll start fighting each other. So it turns into like chaos, which is kind of funny. So basically, you then just spend this quest like continuing down along this coast, and you're just like you clear enemies around a campfire and then put flour in it, and then there's more enemies like nearby near the campfire who don't see you, and then the Hwacha fire will come in, do damage, they fight each other, and then you just like fight them along the way too. So midway along the way you scale a cliff, and yeah, there's a campfire up there, you light it, and then like the Hwacha fire will come in below the cliff. And from up there, you can see like the remainder of the enemies, and it's pretty easy to clear them all with the bow and arrow at this point from up there. And it is just a really cool sight seeing the Hwacha fire launch from the ship. So all in all, I thought this was just like a cool segment in the quest. So then, yeah, eventually you clear the final group along the beach, and you go to the meeting spot on the northern part of this coast to meet Sugi. So you run, and as you're running up, you see Yamaneko's big Mongol ship start burning, and it starts to sink and burn. So then you wait by a campfire on the water, and you basically wait like all night, and then like morning breaks, it cuts to morning, and then eventually Sugi's red casa hat washes up on the shore, and it's basically implied that she's died on this ship. Which I was actually really sad by this. I was really upset by this. And so Jin says farewell to her and says that he hopes she finds peace in the afterlife. And then you actually get her hat. So here's the thing. The quest ends right here, officially speaking. If you look at her hat, it actually says you should bring her hat back to her husband on the coast and just like give him the news. So you don't actually have to do this. The quest is over, but you just can if you want. So of course I was like, oh, I have to do this and, put it on the podcast and let everyone know what it says, what happens. So you go back to Thieves' Rest Village, and when you get there, the villagers like crowded around a dead raider who's impaled on a tree with a note on it. And it's like pinned to the body. So when you read the note reads, it's from Sugi, and it says that it's safer if she just disappears, and she bet that he understands what that's like, and that she wishes that they both are able to live lives free from being hunted. And then that's it. And then you basically you get Sugi's hat again, but it's like permanently yours, and it has a different description of it. It just like references that it came from her. And yeah, that's like the unofficial official end of this quest. So yeah, I thought this was cool. I liked that they just had like a little bit of a more serious 2-part quest. You discover some new places on the map, you meet new people, and you encounter, raiders that have cut deals with the Mongols, which is what the Mongols are so good at. And you see that through this game, right? Like, they convince Ryuzo to side with them, and, they convince people to join their cause along the way. It's just very interesting. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next quest. We're getting towards the end of the episode here. The next quest is called Caretakers of the Eagle. So this takes place at a place called Cloud Forest Temple in Gonora Prefecture in the south. So you start this quest by speaking with the temple caretaker on the grounds of the Cloud Forest Temple. So the Cloud Forest Temple is intact. There's like monks, there's like people working there. Seems like a fine place, but you get the sense something's off. So when you talk to this caretaker, her name is Ito. And she starts whispering, and she says that the other caretakers are keeping her captive there with her brother, and they won't let them leave. So she says that everyone there follows this monk named Zenshin, who's been giving speeches convincing people to join the Eagle tribe. And so Jin says that he'll help, and she asks him, to like free everyone, but not hurt any of the caretakers because they're good people, but they're just following. So she tells you that, like, Zenshin's whole thing is that their way is like the way to serve the Mongols is through service and acts of service. So basically Jin will like help around the temple to get information at the start of this quest. So then it cuts to black, the quest starts, and Jin is in his like casual robes because he's in disguise. So then, like, you look down from this small cliff and you spot some happy caretakers. You spot some Mongol supplies. So clearly the Eagle tribe has been in touch with them. And you spot Zenshin giving a speech. And so Zenshin in his speech is saying that, like, the Eagle showed him nightmares at first, but now she's shown him a new way through serving them that gives him these visions of plenty and of peace. And so Jin realizes that he's been given the poison and that he's getting these visions. And he says that tonight the Eagle tribe is going to come to the temple. And then right then, like, he kind of groans and he seems like unwell, and he like goes inside the temple and no one's allowed inside. So then here, like, the quest starts. So then you can go down to the temple area and start asking around. So yeah, if you can speak with 2 civilians who are making baskets, and Jin offers to help, and they sit around and you just kind of eavesdrop. And they say that they're worried about Zenshin's visions growing darker. But then, like, they basically say, well, he's never led us astray and we'll be okay. So that's kind of that. Then you can go talk to this guy who's like guarding the entrance of the main temple. And he calls himself the Warden. So that's kind of freaky. But he's just dressed normally. Like, none of these people have armor or anything. So the Warden says that he's served Zenshin since Zenshin saved his family from the samurai. And Jin offers to help guard the prisoners. And the Warden says that they're not prisoners, they're lost spirits. But, they're watching over them until they can see the way, and that it isn't Jin's job to watch them. So, politely not letting you in on anything. And then he says that the Eagle tribe is coming and tells Jin to see if people need help around the camp. So at this point, you can then walk to this lower section of the temple, and you just like follow the stone staircase down like the back of it, and there's like, some housing and more people down there. So you then so you can talk with this woman named Okami. She's like standing right in the middle of this courtyard, and she's holding a baby. And she's like a Zenshin worshiper, and she says that Zenshin will guide them to peace and prosperity. And, like, she says that they keep the troubled spirits away, is what she calls them, until they can find the guidance. And so she's talking about like prisoners, basically, that they're like keeping prisoners. So then you see like a guard who's like standing at a house right nearby, and you talk to him and he says like, no one's allowed in here. So what you can do is you can go to the side of the house, and there's like a crawl space that goes under the house, but from that spot, you overhear civilians who are captives inside, and they're basically talking about escaping. So Jin says that he should return when it's nighttime and there's less people watching to help them escape. So then, you go back up to the main part of the temple, and you go to this campfire, and you basically just have to rest until nighttime. So you find a campfire where there's 2 temple people, and they're just drinking, and they're basically saying like, oh, being here is great. All we have to do is just like do a little work, and we get, free food and sake, and, we're safe, and everything's great. And then, you just like wait and like rest. So then it cuts to nighttime. you're back in your armor, and it's time to free all the people. Right away, I was like, let's go. Let's get these people out of here and get the heck out of here. So yeah, you go down to that prison house down below, and you sneak in from the bottom crawlway so no one sees you. Once you get inside and you speak with the prisoners in there, there's like 3 or 4 of them, and Jin says that he's come to save them, and they actually don't believe him. They think it's like a test that they're trying, that the Eagle tribe is like trying to like get them. So Jin tells him that he's going to free Ito and her brother Tukichi, but like he's trying to tell them that he's on their side. But then right then, they say they actually don't know Ito, and you hear Okami outside, this woman, say the Eagle tribe is here, and she's all happy about it. So then actually one Mongol comes inside and you have to defeat him. So then you have to clear the whole temple grounds of Mongols. So you can I actually did this whole thing sneaking. I never fought anyone outright. Great time for a hallucination dart, have them fight each other, and just like find a good place to sneak them whenever you can. So after you clear the temple grounds of Mongols, you rescue Ito's brother, Tukichi. He's just like a prisoner at this nearby campfire. So Jin tells him that he's going to free Ito, and Tukichi says that he'll wait for her down the hill. So you free him, then you run around, you find Ito. She's been taken prisoner too, and she's inside a different building. And yeah, you just like defeat one Mongol in there. And then you tell her that you've saved her brother, and all she has to do is go meet him, down the hill, and that'll be that. So then finally, yeah, you just go back and save the others in that final house. You tell them that like it's clear the Mongols are gone and they can be free. And then the final thing you have to do is stop Zenshin. So after you clear all the Mongols, you can enter the main temple. And so you clear 2 guards inside, and you go inside to like kind of fight Zenshin. And you see him, and he's like laying on the ground, and he's basically tripping out. And he's like flailing around, and this poison is like really not good. Like he's not in a good place. So right away, it's like, oh, this isn't a fight. This guy is like in a bad place, and I need to like help him somehow. So then you start talking to him, and Jin reveals to Zenshin that he also is given the poison. And he says that like, you have to face your fears instead of running from them. So he asks what Zenshin is seeing. And Zenshin says that he sees a child alone whose parents have been killed by the samurai, and that the child is asking for food that he doesn't have. And right then, Jin actually sits down and starts playing the flute. And I thought this was like just a super beautiful scene. And then like, it cuts to black, and like later you're sitting inside the temple with Zenshin. And so Zenshin and Jin are just like sitting right next to each other. And they're just like talking basically. So yeah, and then Zenshin is kind of regretful about everything that's happened. And Zenshin is saying that he'll tell the truth about the Eagle tribe to his followers, and then he'll leave the temple behind until he no longer hears the Eagle's voice anymore. And he says he hopes that whatever truth haunts Jin, he hopes that he doesn't have to face it alone. And that is the end. It's the end of the quest. You then get this healing montage of like, people moving back into the temple and like things healing and getting better. So all that is very good. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was like interesting, just saying like, oh, I hope we don't have to face it alone, because they're kind of referencing Tenzo. And that's what ends up happening, right? Is that Tenzo ends up like saving or like being there to help Jin through the just through his final hallucination and through that final battle with the Eagle. So I thought that was very interesting. And yeah, I have that's the end of the quest at that point. I have one other thing I found out about this. So you can actually find these 2 people, Ito and Tokichi. You can find them at this random encounter back on like a village. They live in a village in the center of the map, and you can talk to their mother actually. who just says like, thank you. And then you have this conversation about family where she says nothing's more important than family. And then she says to Jin, I hope you get around to having a family. And Jin says like, I hope so, but I haven't yet. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. That's actually a random encounter. That's not part of the quest. You can find it afterwards. And I like that they were including stuff like that just throughout the quest in this DLC. So that was cool. All right, so now we're down to the second to last quest. The final quest is pretty short, and that's why it's one of the reasons it's my favorite, but there's just cool stuff in it. But so yeah, the second to last quest is called The Impact of Loss. So you go to a survivor's camp at Nagata Lake, and this is in central Gonora Prefecture. So you arrive and you find civilians at the camp talking about saving someone. So when you talk to them, they're immediately super suspicious of Jin, and they say, we have no food for you, samurai. The Mongols took it all. But Jin right away is like, hey, I don't want it. I just want to help. So they tell you that this monk, Doshin, oversaw their camp, and they were all spared because he volunteered to go with the Mongols peacefully. So Jin offers to help, and they say that a woman named Hotoke at the camp knows where the men are searching. So you go find Hotoke nearby, and when you meet her, she actually has one arm. Her other arm has been, cut off or lost somehow. And she says it's been 15 years since I saw a samurai, and she assumes that Jin wants to take things. Again, these people have very bad associations of the samurai. And Jin says that he just wants to help. So she says that her husband saw the Mongols taking Doshin towards a bridge and to follow her, and that she can lead them in that direction. So yeah, you start following her, and then you start the quest. So you start walking through the woods, and she apologizes for just like her attitude towards the samurai. And she says that what happened to her is that her father caught her feeding a wounded samurai during the Sakai invasion. And the samurai was like hiding out in their stable, and that her father cut off her own arm for it. And, Jin is like super upset by this. I couldn't believe this. I thought this was really shocking. And that her father said, like, this is the hand that feeds the enemy, and like we won't tolerate it. And then Jin says that was cruel and wrong, and then she says that was actually right. And she says that the next night the samurai showed up and slaughtered their whole village. And that's when Doshin found her and took her in. And at this point, you've like kind of arrived at Kitafura village. I didn't know you were headed there. You're just like walking through the woods and you arrive there. So you get the sense that she lived there and she was like a refugee or survived from it. So then, yeah, you follow this path to Kitafura village. And when you arrive there, you find some dead men that she recognizes from her camp. So you investigate and you find an older man named Rokuro who she knows. And she says that he was new to camp. Then you find a younger man named Kaneji, and that he had a wife and children, very sad. So they've been killed at the camp. And then you find rice from their camp, and you start following it out of Kitafura village. So Hotoke is like asking you if you think her husband has survived, and she's very scared. And I was nervous too, but Jin is kind of just like unwilling to say, what he's scared of. So then actually at this point, if you haven't completed the main storyline yet, you'll get a hallucination saying, what would Hotoke... It's the eagle saying, what would Hotoke say if she knew who you were, and that all her suffering, losing her arm and burning her village, is all because of your father's arrogance. So the hallucinations were interesting to me on this. So then, you keep going. You're kind of like following this trail. And she tells you that she never thought she'd have a family until she met Togo, and like life opened up for her. And that is like heartwarming, And so she's like scared that he's dead. So eventually, as you're like getting closer to this final location, you see some Mongols along the path. You have to clear them. So then you arrive at this beach, and it's like it's this beach area around like this small lake, and you have to scout. So I have something I'm going to say about this, but I'll just say this first. So you see Togo on one side of the beach. Togo is her husband. And you see Doshin on an opposite side of the beach, and they're like split apart by the lake. And they're both about to be executed. And you realize that you can only save one of them. So right away, this is like super sad. So you get another hallucination from the eagle, and the eagle is saying like, so what will you choose? Her hopes will die with the monk, but her life will fall into despair without Togo. And this was just a moment where I was like, oh my god, the eagle, can you please get out of my head? This is just like not helpful. So you talk to her, and she says that she can't lose either of them. So you have to pick. So yeah, you can pick whichever one you want, and then you have to go to, the left or right side of the lake and clear the Mongols, and whichever side you go to, the other person will die. So super sad, unfortunate circumstance. Yeah, so I use a hallucination poison again, very fun. If you go to the right-hand side to save her husband, Togo, that's what I did. You can get up on a cliff and like you can clear a lot of the Mongols just with your bow and arrow, and it's not a super hard fight from there. So after you clear them all, you jump down and you save Togo or Doshin. For me, so Togo was like amazed and like super happy to be rescued, obviously. And then like, Hotoke runs up and she has a reunion with Togo. She reveals that she's pregnant. And, they say thank you to Jin. I definitely felt like saving Togo was the right choice. But then, Doshin, like you see Doshin's body dead on the other side of the beach. And, they say they're going to go find Doshin's body and like have a funeral for him. And they talk about whether or not the camp is going to be able to survive. And they say they'll go back to the camp and, hunker down there and hope they can ride it out. And that is the end of the quest. So yeah, really heavy choice you have to make, heavy end to the quest. And actually, after the quest ends, you can actually follow the two of them, and they'll walk around to the other side of the beach and go actually sit by Doshin's body, and Hotoke will start crying like over his body. So very sad to watch that play out. That's another thing that you can find afterwards if you don't just like run away right then. So yeah, those are the 6 I would call like regular quests. Now I'm super excited to talk about this last quest, the final side quest in the Iki Island DLC. So it's called A Helping Hand, and I just came across this quest by accident. So basically, if you pass by a place called Kitsune's Pond in Yahata Prefecture in the north, you'll find a man named Emotaro. And he's got a bunch of supplies in the woods, and you talk to him. So Jin says, oh, it looks like you need a hand. And he's wearing like this basket that straps to his back as like a backpack. And so he says that the Mongols torched his house and that he has to build a new house. And so he says that he relies on himself because he lost his parents 15 years ago. And, he's giving this sense that like his, creed is about like self-sufficiency. So, he says he needs wood for the house. So here's why I wanted to save this quest for the end. They introduce a new game mechanic here. You can then offer him 3 of your yew wood, or you can say farewell. So this is the only time in the whole Ghost of Tsushima game where you can actually like offer someone supplies as like part of a quest. So I thought this was really cool. So then he's thrilled, and he says that he isn't building the house like at that exact spot, but he'll take it to the place he is building the house in Sly Hunter's Forest. So then at this point, he's just gone. So none of this is like this quest. None of it is actually labeled on the map. You just have to like show up at these spots. I actually just happen to find every spot roaming around the map. If you make sure you leave no fog of war, you will find him at every spot. So the next place you can go is to a field near Lake Nagata, and this is a place you were just at for this quest, actually. So if you go to Lake Nagata to the field near there in Gonoura Prefecture, you'll find him standing over a dead boar, and he tells you that he's going after boar hides that he can use on the roof. And so then you can offer him 6 boar hides, which you do. And he's super proud, and he doesn't want to accept the help, but Jin says, like, no, come on, it's okay. And then, and each time you talk to him, he just gives you some, like, anecdotes about his life and tells you some stuff. So I thought this was really cool. So then the final place you find him is on a beach in southern Gonoura Prefecture, and he's gathering metal from shipwrecked ships. And he says that the ships have a sense of what they were and that he envies them. And he says that he lost everything when his house burned down. And he talks about like his grandmother's pin and like items from his father and his family. And, you find this guy to be really interesting. Something about him is really engaging to me. So then you can offer him 10 metal. I think it's iron that you offer him. And he says he doesn't want to accept, but Jin has to say like, no, like, it's unfair what happened to you, and I would be honored if you accept my gift. And Emotaro says like, well, I have to, so I accept. Thank you. And it's just like a really wholesome, nice encounter and just everything that's happening here. So then he says that he's building his house in a grassy clearing west of Fort Sakai, and he invites Jin to come by. So then you do actually get a map marker, and it's just called a helping hand, like the map marker itself. So when you go there, he's sitting there and the house is built. So I thought this was super cool. I was like, oh, word. Cool. And so he's sitting on the front porch and he has like a wife just sitting there. And so then you talk to him and he credits Jin with getting the supplies. And I thought that I loved this. He explains how the boar hide on the roof with thatch on top of it as well, like keeps the rain out, and he talks about how the metals helped build a beam on the house, and the boar hide helped with the roof, and the camera that kind of pans over and shows you the whole house. And Jin just says a few lines to him about how like his first time at Iki Island he saw things burn, and it feels good to like build something and see something rise. And it just made me feel really good. I was just like, this is an awesome quest. I really liked it. It's a pretty small, quick quest all in all if you like just zoom from place to place and do it all, but I just really like this quest. I thought it was cool. And yeah, the new mechanic, it made me feel like, I bet there's going to be more of like transaction mechanics in Ghost of Yotei when it comes out. So yeah, and that's the end of the quest. It ends right there. You actually get a charm from this quest. It's called the Charm of Iron Grip, so that you can hold your arrows knocked for as long as you want, and your hand will never shake. I actually thought that was a pretty cool charm to get, honestly. So that's pretty cool. And last thing I wanted to mention is you can actually walk inside the house. You can open the door to his house. I did not feel good about bashing the door open in this one, because I was like, this guy built this. No way I'm going to do that. But yeah, you can walk around the house inside. There's nothing really inside to find, but it's just cool to see, that he built it himself and that you were part of it in that way. And yeah, that is all I got for the 7th quest, A Helping Hand, and for all the side quests of the Iki Island DLC. I really like these side quests. I thought they were all really good. I thought they all added a lot and were heavy. They all were just, very, just adding something to the story and just making you think and adding new dimensions. And I just really appreciate all that. So I really enjoyed these quests. I hope you guys did too. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. Feel free to reach out to us on Blue Sky or at any of the links in our show notes if you want to chat or have any comments or questions about the show. So thank you all for listening, and just remember, if you're trying to build a house, make sure you keep a close eye out through your adventures out in the world.